Hi everyone, it's Aircat Moonlight Book Reviews, and it's my second Fragment Friday here. Having a hard time with my words. And I'm going to share a book with you that I found at Teen Reads when I must have been okay, when was this published? I'm going to find out when this one was published. I don't know, I was younger. In 2006, it's 2011, so 5 years ago. When I was 12. When I was 12. Yeah, because I would have been in 6th grade. Okay, so when I was 12. And I think this might actually be the last historical fiction book I've read in a long time. I don't know if it was the last one. It was surely one of the last ones before I got into paranormal. I don't know. But it's called Hattie Big Sky, and it's by Kirby Larson. It's a pretty cover. Even this is pretty. This is the color scheme of my room. And, basically it's about a 16-year-old girl who goes to Montana to, she's inherited, sort of, to take up where her dead relative has left off on a claim because, they're homesteading and you have to live on the piece of land for a certain amount of time and you have to harvest a certain amount of acres and fence a certain amount of acres. And right now she has been here a little while, and there's this kind of nice looking guy here, and she doesn't know quite what to think of him. He kind of wants to buy her land, but he doesn't tell her yet, I don't think. It's been a long time since I've read this. But it's good. So we'll start up from here. A stitch sampler hung on Aunt Ivy's kitchen wall. Monday wash day, Tuesday ironing, Wednesday mending, Thursday market, Friday cleaning, Saturday baking, Sunday day of rest. It was Tuesday, so both sad irons were heating on the stove, and I covered the kitchen table with a clean blanket. The shears were the hardest to iron. The sheets were the hardest to iron, so that's where I started. When one iron cooled off, I'd set it back on the stove and pick up the hot one, running it over a piece of old flour sacking to clean off my ash. I had my camisoles and under things laid out to iron next when I heard a horse in the yard. "Hello there," a male voice called out. "Miss Brooks?" I peeked out the open door. "Draft." For a fleeting moment, I wished I'd put on my skirt this morning instead of the more practical pair of Chester's old overalls. "Good morning, ma'am." The range horse was slick with sweat. Wonder if I might water trouble? That's a weird sentence. I nodded. Out for a long ride? You might say so. He slid to the ground with the jingle of spurs. "Would you like a cup of coffee?" I motioned him toward the house with some bread. "It won't compete with Pearlie's, but it won't kill you," Traff sighed. "Sounds about like my own cooking." He watered and tethered his horse, then stepped inside. "Won't you sit?" I stopped. There for the world and Traft Martin to see were my underthings. I snatched them up and deposited them in my nearby empty lard bucket. "You made it very homey around here," he said. A crinkle in his eyes betrayed him. He'd seen, oh Lord, what would Aunt Ivy think? I pointed to the apple crate. "This chair is especially comfortable." I quickly tipped over the lard bucket so he wouldn't see its contents, then set out some refreshments. Traft devoured several slices of bread with Uncle Chester's buffalo berry jam and 2 cups of coffee. Then he pushed his plate and cup away. "Thank you," he said. "That did hit the spot." He shook his booted left foot. "Right down here." I'm working on getting it lighter," I said. He grinned. "It's hard to get light bread in damp weather. Maybe next time get your sponge over the water reservoir in the stove. That's what my mother does." "Why, Mr. Martin, you are better than a subscription to the Ladies' Home Journal." I finished my coffee. "Speaking of my mother, she wanted me to invite you to the church on Easter. There'll be supper after the sewing and a sewing circle for the Red Cross." He stood up. I couldn't tell if his cheeks were badly chapped or if he was blushing. "I'd be pleased to come take you." "Oh, thank you, but I don't know. I mean, if I'm not planting, perhaps I'll go, but I'll bring myself." I wasn't sure if it meant out there to ride to church with a band, but back home, that was reserved for courting couples. Suit yourself that he picked up his hat and set it on his head, holding my gaze as he situated it just so. The look he gave me nearly undid my resolve to decline his offer. Oh, I nearly forgot. I stopped at Nefsker's store this morning, and he had some mail for you. I said I'd bring it out. He reached inside his shirt front and brought out a small bundle. That's so kind of you. No trouble at all. He shrugged back into his jacket. I like the scenery out this way. It was my turn to blush. With a nod, he slipped out the door. I watched him mount his horse and ride away. I fanned myself with the packet he'd brought. Funny how the cabin had warmed up so quickly. I shook myself and untied the packet holding 2 letters from in the wolf print Herald. The first letter was from Uncle Holt with a small postscript that pleased me to no end. I surely enjoyed your last letter. The second letter was from Charlie. It was dated several months before and sent on from Arlington. The envelope was stained and creased. The words "opened by censor" were stamped heavily on the back. February 10, 1918. Dear Hattie, you know I'm not one to complain, but I've been in France for 3 months without one letter from you. Could it be that you don't think of your old pal Charlie anymore? I sure hope not. Well, I haven't won the war yet. Give me a few more days. So far, it's mostly drills and trying not to get sick. My bunkmate's in the hospital now for the dysentery. We hope we don't all end up in the wards before we see some action. You would swoon if you saw how handsome your old pal looks in his uniform. A Red Cross nurse took my photo yesterday. If it turns out, I'll send it to you. I can't tell you much about where I am. The censors turned most letters into Swiss cheese as it is. But I hope I can come back someday. The buildings here have been standing for centuries, and the food even beats Ma's cooking. Don't tell her, but I've sampled some of that French wine. It slips down pretty fine. Today was hand grenade practice. No trouble at all. For the best pitcher in Fayette County. Couldn't help thinking of the day I taught you to throw. Remember when you beaned old Jack the rooster? You straightened out your throw considerable after that, but I'm not sure poor Jack ever fully recovered. Guess what? They asked for volunteers to learn to be airplane mechanics, and you can bet I stepped right up. Suits me fine, and my sergeant says I'm picking it up real quick. Don't forget about your old pal. Write me a line now and again, Charlie. So that's a little bit about. That's just a little scene from that, and I don't know if I mentioned, but the homesteading takes place during World War II. And Hattie has a friend, Charlie, who's in the war, and she meets some more friends when she has some friends who help her out when she's there who also have been homesteading for a while as a family. And basically it talks about how if you're German in the U.S. during this time, you're being prosecuted for the fear of being spies, and it goes through that a little bit. And it also goes through homesteading and what soldier life is like, and it has kind of a love story wrapped up in here, along with kind of an old southern type of western story, but more kind of a dainty one because there's about a girl. And I remember this book a lot. I really, really, really liked it. It was something that stuck with me for a while. So, if you're a librarian, I recommend you put this in your library. And if you're someone just stopping by for a book to read, I recommend that you read this one. Even if my stumbling didn't help. And I am really nasally today because I have a cold. But I did this for you, Fragment Friday, and those of you who are calling for it. So, that was Hattie Big Sky, everyone. And I'll see you in a couple days.